pact once broken, forged anew. Warlocks forged anew.
Did you want waffles?
It's live.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the stream.
Good morning.
We have a very special guest this morning. It's I think Batman. I think
A whole ass controller up my ass. Oh my god. Sorry, I just sat differently in my chair.
No one makes Batman laugh.
Well, I guess that's it.
Gotham.
That's all, folks. I don't know how we can do the show going forward from this.
I thought this was a TTRPG live stream. I didn't think it was one of those weird, do things with controllers live streams.
You good, Judy?
I'm here. I had so many things I was gonna do today, and they're all gone. They're just all gone. Man.
This is your villain origin story.
Oh
Welcome to Warlocks and Waffles, everybody. Usually a TTRPG morning show. We are joined this morning by very good friend of the show, Elliot.
Batman.
Batman, also known as Elliot.
I don't know who that is.
Elliot has Batman. Let me tell you a little bit about Elliot. Elliot holds the record for the most number of characters played in the smallest number of my games.
Sounds like a really awesome guy.
Yeah. Across 3 campaigns, Elliot has played 8 characters.
That's very impressive.
It's a good score, yeah. Especially when you consider the fact that out of those 8, 5 of them are from the same campaign, and in that campaign, everyone else has only played 1 character.
For context, he kind of just leaves and then comes back with a different hat and character sheet, and just everybody's played along.
I mean, you say that, but that was kind of the premise of one of his characters.
Oh, it's so funny. That's good. That's so great.
Junie.
You haven't actually described him, but he also sounds very attractive.
I mean, I would never know. He's always wearing a Batman mask.
That's my IP. I have to find him.
Good luck.
I am vengeance and also very litigious.
Where the heck is this show going?
We can see your elbow. For the audio listener. For the audio listener, he threw a sock or some shit over the camera. We can see.
Hey,
it's
sorry I'm late to the
Elliot.
stream, guys.
Welcome to the show.
Hey, bro, what's up? What to do?
How's it going?
You had a controller?
It's great.
Yeah, no, I don't. Do you? Can you lend me one?
You don't want it.
Can you lend me a controller and also Purell? Welcome to the show, Warlocks and Waffles, home of a intro segment we don't know what to do with. If you're looking to rehome an intro segment, call 1-800 this bit sucks.
That's probably real. That's probably real.
Welcome to the show, Elliot. How has your week been? I'm so thoroughly thrown off.
I'm counting. I'm trying to think if this bit sucks is like enough numbers. I think that might be enough numbers to be a real phone number.
I think it's too many.
Yeah.
But maybe one digit. This
I think
bit, maybe I don't know how to spell. I don't know how to spell, y'all.
I think maybe if it was just this bit sucks, like that just encompassed the
Mhm.
1 and the 800.
Maybe.
I'm gonna have
Who
I'm gonna have
knows?
this phone number before we
Anyway,
end.
No. Let's spend the rest of the stream doing this math.
how's y'all's weeks? Y'all are focusing really hard on a very easy to figure out number.
It's 7 a.m. on a Friday.
7 a.m. on a Friday.
On a Friday, regular crowd logs on in. There's an old man sitting next to me. How the hell did he get in?
Welcome to the show. I think that's the fourth time I've said welcome to the show.
Yeah.
I don't know what else to do. I've thoroughly lost control of this segment. I'm gonna try this
with
one
something?
time. I'm gonna try this one
What?
more time.
Go
How
ahead.
was your week?
I want to punish you guys with something that I had to live with since Wednesday, because we are a lot of things, and I will never let it die that this is also a Masked Singer fan cast. Could both of you? I don't even feel like Googling it for the audio listener. Just look up Masked Singer koala, and I'm sorry. There are 3 categories of Masked Singer masks. Oh, that's cool, and it looks cool in person. Oh, that looks terrifying in a picture, and when you see it in person, you're like, oh, that's not as bad. And
Why-
some that it does not get better.
Why?
It just stays wrong.
Why does this
that
koala have very human eyes?
yeah, it is a nightmare koala, and watching it sing around and dance with Optimus Prime, no context, didn't make it any better, and I hated it, and I couldn't stop seeing it.
Okay.
And I
Now,
wanted it gone
I see.
off my
I
screen.
see 2 different people
I
who are
will
wearing
say,
koala. Potentially
Did they-
4 different people in koala outfits.
I think it's like guesses as to who it might be.
No,
you see,
I see pictures like of different koala outfits.
if I type in
I'm-
Masked Singer koala, it is all. Oh,
It's mostly one guy.
I see one who's wearing like a medieval outfit, one who's wearing like a
Is that the
skateboard
one?
helmet, one who's
Oh.
wearing like a ballerina tutu,
okay.
one who's
I know what's
wearing
wrong
a
here.
like
I'm sorry.
tropical
I'm
shirt.
sorry. You're okay. I understand what's going on. This show is international. It's the one that is purple. The one that he has like he looks like a musketeer.
Got it.
Yeah. Okay, so as horrifying as its face is, it's
The
got some
outfit's
drip.
great. The outfit's
got some
great.
drip.
That's the problem. It's
The outfit's
he's got a
so
he's,
good, except for
sometimes
the
they
fact that he does have a koala head with photorealistic eyes.
It's the because in like already I was like, oh, and then when I see him move around, the shadows make him look like more demony eyes, and it made it worse. Once again, Optimus Prime. He came out of Optimus Prime, right? Like an actual semi. It was a crossover episode. They were all singing songs from the soundtracks of all the Transformers. So actual Transformers kept like like in between
Elliot,
performances.
can you name one song that you're confident is in the Transformers
Oh,
soundtrack?
one and only one, and it's the "You Got the Touch" from the old like '86 movie. But that's the only one. The rest are like Michael Bay, like no lyrics whatsoever.
Okay, but how
Now I
funny
would
would
love
it
it.
be if somebody walked out on stage and was like doing their song and they're just doing the sounds?
I was gonna say making up lyrics, but that's actually even better.
Like I can't think of a single
I will tell
sound
you.
piece
I will tell you the
from
songs because I had to
Transformer.
Google it. 21 Guns by Green Day,
Yeah,
Brick
sure.
House by the
Okay.
Commodores,
Okay.
All That You Are by the
So
Goo Goo Dolls.
just songs that appeared in Transformers movies, not
Yes.
Transformers songs. That's a little bit
Yeah.
of a cop out.
It
If nobody
seems
did that you got the
wild.
touch,
I think that Fox is
then
just using whatever properties they can or have access to make themes
yes,
because
that
they
makes sense.
they had the actual voice actor Cullens. Like I actually know the OG voice actor that voices Optimus Prime.
You got
Like
the touch.
yeah, he can't just like Ken Jong. You are so like he's really I could tell they really had him do voice VO for this. And I'm like, what is going on? Yeah, I didn't know what we were talking about today, guys. So I assume this is it.
I literally texted you and told you. But that's
You did? Shit.
I fully sent you what we were talking about today. So since Junie clearly knows what we're talking about, let's go ahead and dive right in.
Yeah, Junie,
No
kick us
prep
off.
needed, nothing. Elliot, you are notorious for making too many characters in too little campaigns. But you also notoriously make very complicated characters. To the point where sometimes I don't even bother really looking at your character sheet because I don't understand what's happening on there. For anyone at home who doesn't know, I think I've talked about this on stream before because it would be wild if I hadn't. Elliot's first character that he played in one of my games was a changeling who had absorbed the spirits of other people
Oh,
and
it was
had multiple
more complicated than that.
personalities, and so he had different full characters, and he would roll to see what character he was going to play as, and yeah, he had a whole chart system. It was a lot. That character died in a bandit fight, and then his
You like
party
so
As one
special.
does.
yeah, in very very early on, they hadn't completed their first quest line yet. Died in a fight with bandits, and then his party tied him to a horse and sent the horse running through town to use him as a distraction so they could escape.
A
But
distraction from what? We'll never know.
yeah, nobody was looking for them. They tied him to a horse. Didn't tie him to into the saddle. Tied him off the back of the horse and sent the horse running through the town. So the horse is running through town, dragging a dead body. It was that was the end of Elliot's first character, and then he was like, all of my characters will be more convoluted than this. But because of that, it leads us into our topic today, which is narrative multiclassing. Choosing to multiclass for the purpose of the story or to make something that works for a specific character concept or stuff like that. Elliot, this
Yes.
is a topic you are very familiar with. What is it about these characters that you find the most appealing?
I think it's the versatility. You know, I I'll get a character idea that I love, and like I was saying before, it's just amazing. Going on dates with it. You know, looking at rings. We've got to that stage, and then all of a sudden I'll be like, well, I've done all the things that this character can do, and I'll just drop it on a curb somewhere, and pick up another very convoluted character that I'm like, oh, and think of this feature and this feature, and these things don't work together, but they narratively sound so cool.
Mm-hmm.
Currently, my current character,
Uh-huh.
and if there's I see C17Rs in the chat, so
Mm-hmm.
you're in this campaign, so you'll get a little mechanical background on Ricket. Um, but uh, he started as an artificer druid
Mm-hmm.
and now is a druid trainer or tamer from what's the
Helianos.
Helianas, which is kind of like if you wanted to make a Pokemon trainer a class in D&D,
Mm-hmm.
but his whole shtick is mad scientist. So this
Mm-hmm.
one character has already been multiple builds at this
Yeah,
point.
this character has had, because it wasn't even originally just like the straight druid like artificer build. There was like other stuff we tossed around originally. Like we had kind of started moving in one direction, then we switched it to something else. Like
Yes.
yeah.
It was originally a 3 multi-class. I'm just trying to think what the third class was, and I can't remember because it's early in the morning and you made me wake up.
um I know we usually when you and I start talking about characters, we start with a like a vibe and build from there. We're like, what if it was the like this kind of thing? I think my favorite like hook of your current character was that the a skill I have had to develop because I have been running for Elliot is learning how to incorporate a new character into an existing party. And the hook for Elliot's character this time was they were in a town deep in the swamps, and his character was like, well, you seem like you're lost in the swamps. I can help you leave the swamps if you get me out of here.
He is, I think I have on his character sheet that he's 120.
Mm-hmm.
He
He's
is
a
a
turtle.
small turtle.
Yeah.
So think like Muppet Yoda turtle.
Ooh.
And
Mm-hmm.
that's him. Or I think I described it as Muppet Yoda Oogway. Um,
Mm-hmm.
um,
Yep.
and
If Frank Oz played Oogway and he was the size of the Yoda puppet, that is
and
Ricket.
100% not a war criminal.
100%. It's been made. He's said that so many times.
He's made that extremely clear,
Mm-hmm.
even just out of the blue, like complete silence amongst the group, and he's like, "Don't forget, I'm not a war criminal."
Just want to make it very clear. Neither I or my sentient plant with a knife is a war criminal.
Or my hideously misformed copy of myself.
Or my owl.
Or my plain ass owl.
I just want to know if you want fries with that.
Sir, this is Wendy's.
Yes,
Sir.
an extra sauce.
Junie, I know you are also a fan of making, I would say, suboptimal characters.
That's a good way to say shitty. Yeah. That's
No, in the best way possible. Like I've played in a lot of games with you, Junie. Every character that Junie makes is a like, okay, here's my guy, and here's why he shouldn't be doing this.
yeah. I love subverting expectations and like basically I want to be put through as many mental gymnastics as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, if I'm gonna do this, I might as well like stretch and like get. I don't do actual exercise, so let my brain do the exercise, right? So I will do something where it's like, how can I make it believable, but like actually like make it bounce forward. So it's I don't do a lot of multi-classing, but I kind of Jenga balance a class
Mm-hmm.
versus a personality or backstory that kind of just doesn't go with it. So
you move in the direction of like this is a character that shouldn't be doing what they're doing, and that's funny.
yeah. So it's like for when I was running Feywild, it was a very 20 charisma kobold that had anxiety. And it was just panic attacks and anxiety. But when he talked to people, it was like this and it was smooth. But then he'd have to go breathe into a paper bag afterwards. I was just going to do for Rosie's stream. I couldn't do it, but I was going to do a turtle, and it was going to be a tea expert who was going to explain things in like, I think I gave him like negative intelligence. I think it was a cleric. I don't know. Yeah, I think it was a cleric, and he was just going to just be an expert on something, but he's the shittiest expert, but he is an expert on this.
I love a low intelligence caster. Like there's something just so immediately funny to me about somebody who does magic and doesn't understand how.
No, all
like
the way around.
The way GMs hand wave, like a player will be like, well, how is that happening? And the GM's like, magic. But like in game, this person is like, they're like, how do you do that? And they're like, magic. And they're like, yeah, but how? And they're like, oh.
All the way around, he was high intelligence because I made him an artificer. He was going to be explaining it in a way that it sounded stupid because you're not as smart as him. He knows what he means. He knows what he's talking about. And he was. It was basically
so
I think I showed you the image. It was like I just AI generated like a vibe image, and it was like a turtle with a handlebar mustache and a wizard hat cocked to the side. And I was like, this is the vibe I'm going for.
That's an amazing vibe.
Yeah. But my favorite one was a barbarian, and I didn't do like it was right before Tasha's, so it was like, oh, I'm not gonna mix and match the racial points you get, like you get what you get. So I was like, even if I dump intelligence, it was a 10, right? And I wanted to make a gnome barbarian, and I was like, well, he's a 10. And then so my logic was, all right, what if he was the smartest of where he's from? And so I said he was raised by giants who all have low intelligence, and he was called Pocket because he could fit in their pocket. And so he was a gnome barbarian raised by giants, but because he was the smartest, he was gnomes have the tinkerer ability, and I was trying to rationalize why he was a tinkerer. So I said all his weapons were he made them. So it was like a real janky javelin or a real cobble thing. So when it came to like something needed to be looked at, I was like, I have tinkering. I have advantage on this. It's going to be a negative, but I mean, I do have advantage on this. And the tinkering was just me whacking it with my hammer. And I was just like, nah, that's broken. Nope. Right there. That's not going to work. And it was just like, done.
I think that awesome. all three of us have something in common when we are making characters, which is we make a character that we think narratively sounds like fun, and then build mechanics around like those narratives. Because I've known so many players that will like just build a character around like, I want to be good at like hitting things. It's like, that's fine. But like there's nothing wrong with being more mechanic focused in like building your character, but the three of us are all very like narratively driven. So when we're making characters, it's like, okay, this would be a fun story thing if my character was like this, and then we start from there. Do you have something to say, Elliot?
We all had something to go.
I will say the one character that I started with mechanics and built story around it was Woos Bane, aka Natman. Don't tell anybody you know. But I had been watching the Dungeon Dudes, and they had like their multi-classing tier ranking, and they talked about a rogue artificer build, and how weirdly well that works. If you do like the armorer with the stealth armor. And I was just immediately like, well, that's Batman. And so I was like, oh cool, I'm gonna just for fun build a little Batman character. and then I was like, wait, they have cast off armor and a helm of what is it? A
The
helm of
dread helm.
horror? Or
Dread.
the dread
Yeah.
helm. And I was
Yeah.
like, oh, okay, no, this is perfect. He's just gonna constantly switch between personalities, and then like
was
so many things came
it
together.
was really funny because he also like he had a really high stealth and like a pretty good deception. And so he would dive, but like the party would be walking, he would be Woos Bane. They would be like getting into an area where like he thinks there's gonna be combat. He would dive behind a rock and then come out the other side and be like in the Natman armor.
That's so freaking good.
And he would just like roll deception to be like, hey, like I'm here now. Like the
Well,
funniest ones were when Natman would leave and then he'd come out and he'd be like, I found you guys. Where have you been? And they'd be like, oh, you just missed Natman. He's like, darn, I've really been wanting to meet him.
I hear he is really awesome.
I
But
also liked oh, go ahead.
no, I a lot of times I would just be like, I'm tired of being Woos. I dive behind a rock. I'm tired of being Natman. I dive behind a rock.
It did fill your constant need to change characters.
You were playing your own
mean-
game. You were playing
Yeah.
a game within a game.
I mean,
Yeah,
this character had 10 characters.
yeah, that was a lot. I also
I
I
think-
liked the mechanic that we gave Woos, which was that you were like very wealthy, but you and so the understanding was you had an absurd amount of money to throw around, but it was all like goof money. Like it was money that you could use for dumb things. And our understanding as like GM to player is you would never like go into a magic shop and buy magic items.
Yeah,
And like
I would never
make
buy
sure-
an airship for the group. It was
Right.
always like sit down at a bar and just be like, yes, I'll have a single glass of your finest champagne. Everybody else is paying for themselves.
and then he would drop like 100 gold just for no
Yeah.
reason. There was one point where he asked somebody a question in the town. They didn't know the answer, and he was like, "Thank you for your time." I give him an absurd amount of gold. Like
I
just
think it was
gave-
like 300 gold.
Yeah, it was an insane
This is a regular
amount.
tip, right? This is what regular people use as money.
That was so stupid, and I loved it so much. It's one of the reasons in the new campaign that I play with Elliot. I made wealth a skill, and so in situations where like you are trying to like gauge the value of something, or you're trying to like do that little like bribe here or something like that, instead of having to worry
the
about like
occasional bribe on the side. Yeah,
that
yeah.
little like the money you need to do the bit, like it's a skill.
And I forget that Rickett is actually very wealthy.
Yes, and
But I think
we
because
discussed
he was
why.
sequestered in a swamp
Yeah.
for 40 years, it was like he had all these investments, but he doesn't know what happened to them.
yeah,
They're
like
tied
on-
up in a bank somewhere.
on paper, Rickett is wealthy.
Yes.
But he doesn't know how to access those funds.
He invested
he
in
is-
crypto real early, and he has
And
so
so
many
now he's
Bitcoin
in debt?
somewhere. No, he's got that like that secret Bitcoin, the one that's just kept piling up.
The
and
Rickett-
dark Bitcoin.
surviving
Rickett
the
went
dips,
all
and now
in
it's
on
like-
Rickett went all in on GameStop, but doesn't know how to cash out. The
What the hell? I thought this was a sleeper stock. How is it so high?
my
What did I
grand-
miss in 40 years in a swamp?
My grandson
what's the-
keeps playing games, and I want him to stop, but it's
What's-
no matter how
what's
much
a-
money I put
what's a
into this, it
Tesla?
doesn't happen.
What's a Tesla? I wanted soup.
What is a Cybertruck? It sounds cool. I bet it's really cool and not like broken in many ways.
a Cybertruck. I bet that won't chop off people's fingers. We can't go down this rabbit hole. We will never
Back
dig
to
ourselves
Transformers.
out.
We came full circle, right?
Yeah, we
So
came full
Optimus
circle
Prime
to Transformers.
is a Cybertruck.
A parallel universe where Optimus Prime is a Cybertruck and Transformers just suck. There's so many multi-classes that work very, very well together. There's also a lot of multi-classes that don't work well together, but thematically are fun. What are some of your like both of you, what are some of your favorite multi-class builds, and why? They could be good multi-classes, they could be bad multi-classes. What are some of your favorites?
I know I like when Rogue does get added to things for sneak attack.
Rogue is a great secondary class. Like, and any class gets cool stuff if you multi-class it with Rogue.
Yeah.
Oh, but you see, but I do the thing we both do where it's just like I start the wrong way, so he start on the streets, right? So it's a level 1 rogue.
That works too.
So I start that way, and then I try to go from there. It's like could they've learned, and then I put them in a book or like they're a pirate now. So
Yeah.
I think my weird like one that was fun was I did make like a swashbuckling wizard pirate. Where it was just like everybody assumed it's like, oh, you're slinging spells you can't do. It's just like I could stab you in the ribs. It's kind of like he would like try to cast from a distance, and so it was kind of like, or he has that, like if anything, his mid game like is his mid range sucks, but he's got distance and he's got close up. He's deadly and dangerous. But I always feel that it things work really good when they have those extremes. If it's everything is like in the middle, then it's kind of like you don't know where to shine. You know what I mean? Because it's just like, oh yeah, we're all average. We're all so like obscenely average. It's like you need to have something you're bad at.
Every
So
character
it's like,
needs a good, like, this is the thing I do better than anyone, and a good, this is the thing that I will fail every attempt at.
yeah. I'm trying to think of like, well, what you said before about like what was it, artificer and druid? I was just like, don't those like literally can't function since like metal? But then I was like, there would be good ways to spin it.
Yeah, and well, we went with kind of a like a biomancer type energy
Yeah.
where like
It's big mad scientist vibes.
Yeah.
His whole thing was that he worked for a government project to create super soldiers. And so like he's the magic user. The thing is like he's neither, like on paper he's an artificer and a druid, but in the
He's neither of
narrative
those
he's
things.
neither.
Yeah.
Yeah, he is a scientist that dabbles in magic and nature stuff. Like he's more into biology and gene splicing and
Yeah.
stuff.
He is
And that's actually where I like to take a lot of class combos is like, yeah, on paper it's these classes, but really it's its own entire thing.
It all, you do this a lot with your characters, and I always enjoy the way that you like take those. It reminds me of like I learned to play D&D on AD&D because that was what my dad knew how to play, so that's what he taught me and my friends how to play. And in like those early editions of D&D, if you wanted to be a bard, bard was not like a class you took at first level. Bard was you needed levels in like a fighter, you needed levels in a magic user, you needed levels in
like
a rogue.
earn it, yeah.
To like,
I couldn't.
once you had gotten all those things, then you became a bard. But and so it feels very much the same way to me of like this is a whatever this is. on paper it's a like level whatever druid, level whatever artificer, but that is to get the abilities of those things and merge them together into one new class.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's something that it would be nice to have in 5th edition. Like,
Mm,
I get that that gets really complicated
hmm.
and a little overblown, but, like, I'm sure somebody's made one. But I do love the idea of, "Hey, have you handcrafted this character so
I think
intricately that he's now a new thing?"
I think
Hmm.
that's what they're gonna try to do with the in the next edition. They're doing like the weapon properties and stuff like that, because
Mhm.
it'll be like we can both use a dagger, but only a rogue can make people bleed with a dagger, and maybe a
Right.
fighter can chuck it further. You know what I mean? Like they're all
Yeah.
gonna have
Yeah.
properties, like where it's like a barbarian might be able to dual wield huge weapons that can't be like a two-handed weapon in one hand
Hmm.
type of thing as a regular
Yeah.
thing. So
A
you're gonna be
thing
able
that
to build like
anybody
those
who's
kinds of
doing a cool
damagey builds.
barbarian was already doing.
Oh yeah, yeah. You know what's
Well,
funny?
you no, go
Oh,
ahead.
go ahead. No, 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 go ahead. Mine's my thing's done.
Oh, well, so that just reminded me though that that initially Allie,
Hmm.
that's also in this campaign, was a different bard build.
Hmm.
Um, and was going to be the College of Dance
Hmm.
from
Mm.
the UA for the new edition.
Yep.
And I was like, this is great because then because yeah, pour one out for Allie. Um, but with those weapon attributes, there was this combo of like a dagger and a dart, where if you I forget exactly what it was, but I think if you use a dagger, you can like make two attacks with it or something.
Mm.
And if you use a dart, you can then attack as a bonus action. And I was like, I as a bard, like early on, I can just make 3 attacks at like level 1.
Hmm.
Mm.
And it was just wild. And then, get multi-attack later, and then the dance bard has all of these cool, like, you can give your group features that you have by like dancing in sync with them or something, which sounds honestly, the narrative is
That's
silly.
instructional. That's an aerobic instructor. You're like locking eyes with them, and you're like this. You're just like, and you're making them like, okay,
You're just
okay,
leading
and
them
then
in Zumba during a
yeah,
fight.
but like, yeah, but you're like across locking eyes, and then just like shucking and jiving, and then you're making them like, all right, move your feet like this, do this.
To the
I,
left,
I,
to the
I am
left.
DJ Orange Theory. Let's go.
it's like as far as like when it comes to like running a thing, like I like seeing all this, like all the mechanical stuff,
Hmm.
but like I've realized that I'm kind of like a purist because I never get to see the high level features on things because
Hmm.
games don't go that high, and then when I multi-class it takes them even further.
Yeah.
So I end up going pure whatever the class is, and then having to wang jangle the backstory or the background or
Hmm.
the personality to give myself that combo experience, because I never get to like it's like a lot of one shots. It's always like something where it's like a small thing, or I'm not gonna be able to whatever. So it's just like, what can I do to make this the most fun for me, at least? You know what I mean? Like that battle royale we did, like I made that character way too deep for what that needed to be. Like I
I
was just like,
I will say
there was no
that battle
reason that needed to be that
royale,
deep.
the battle royale, I played a multi-classed druid barbarian,
You read the
which
assignment.
was a lot of
Clearly
fun.
in a
Mm,
different. I
Um,
was in a different place.
when Totem of the Bear barbarian and a Circle of the Moon druid,
yeah.
and like wild shape, like you rage and you wild shape and you like start attacking, because like you can't cast spells while you're raged, but wild shape isn't a spell,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
so like then you just start mauling things. And so but then because I wasn't like a super high level in barbarian, I didn't have access to like any of the like uh 2 attacks in an action or anything
Mhm.
like that. And so but like I was a Circle of the Moon druid, so I could wild shape into things that did have more attacks. It was that got
It,
brutal.
that's like opposite end of the spectrum from like like weird janky multi-classes to
Hmm.
the OP top 3
Yeah, it was.
multi-classes.
Yeah.
That's up there with like the Sorcedin or
Sorcedin's
the
wild, dude.
For
what's the
context,
coffee lock?
Coffee Lock's fun.
for context, that was like Hunter's like crazy tank that was like the one to kill in that death match. I was and like I was just some kid that had like was the chosen one and had to be like a Batman-y type character and was trying to get back to his day job because like Dave was going to cover his shift for his birthday. So he was
Literally
just trying.
none of that kit was
I had
gone
to
over.
shoehorn in that like somebody was gonna cover my shift so I could go do something on my birthday. And I had to
So
just,
funny.
and I was like, none of this matters. And Hunter was like, oh, we're gonna fight each other to death. Here is like somebody that could do that. I was just like, all right, I guess I'm like I don't know, like a Sailor Moon type of I shot a beam of light, and I just I was like, none of this matters. I really should have just made somebody to kill things, and I didn't.
The something that happens quite frequently with multi-classing is that you'll find there are some class features that don't like stack well with each other, where they
Mhm.
like either get weird or they certain classes have similar
Like yeah, rogue and
stuff.
monk have like overlap when it comes to
Mhm.
certain ones. Yeah.
Yeah.
What is your guys' approach as a GM when a player wants to multi-class something and the multi-class has like, okay, well, you're missing out on a core class feature because the other class already has that feature. Do you guys do anything to like enhance that? What is your approach there?
So I know I've had a few, especially like newer players that
Mm-hmm.
kind of find themselves very suddenly being very interested in the mechanics, and they're like, "Oh, I didn't realize that this was so cool."
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
like, "What
Mm-hmm.
if I did this and this?" A lot of times I'll be like, "Well, I will say you get to a certain point and you get diminishing returns on this.
Mm-hmm.
But if you want to do that for concept, we can adjust some of these abilities so that like if some like one thing I was going to talk about was a barbarian, um,
Yeah.
which is
Barbarians.
such a fun
It's
concept,
so
but
good.
you rage and you can't cast your bard spells and
Yep.
stuff.
You
And
rage and you
but
can't
if you
cast spells, and then if you are like uh playing them kind of like 50-50, you're missing out on having access to the better spells, so by the time you're like casting
Mhm.
stuff, it's like not necessarily all that useful. A lot of bard spells are also concentration because they're like buffs and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
um but like I talked to them about like you could, if you want to, we can work out a sort of like quasi smite system as a
mm-hmm.
barbarian where yeah, you can't cast spells, but you can still burn your spell slots while you're raging. Um and I forget the exact mechanic we came up with, but it was something where it wasn't quite as good as a full like paladin smite,
Yeah.
and it had like some downsides that if they like use it so many times per short rest,
Mm-hmm.
it had like I think it actually started to cause them damage or something.
So it's
Mm-hmm.
like they
But
clench up, and if like they let out a magical fart, but if they do too much, they magically shit themselves.
yes.
That's amazing.
Well, I mean, I could
That's
if you
amazing.
wanted
Oh no,
to
I've
play
magically shat myself.
if you
Yeah, that
wanted to
sounds
play
amazing.
a like a barbarian, I mean, paladin is a
Mm-hmm.
a charisma-based
Yeah.
caster, you
Mhm.
could just multi-class barbarian and paladin, and
Yeah.
flavor it as a bard, and then like replace the like divine sense and what's the other one, the channel divinity or whatever that they have,
Mhm.
The oath spells type
yeah,
thing.
like
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
replace those with a bardic inspiration mechanic. Like
Yeah.
there's ways to do that to make you like a tankier caster that can then also like spend those points.
Right.
Paladin is a very fun multi-class as well, just for smite. Like a paladin rogue is a
Oof.
nasty build,
Yeah.
because you get the like sneak attack and smite all on one thing. It's terrifying.
Yeah.
um the example I always think of with the multi-class like having some drawbacks is if you multi-class barbarian monk, which is such a cool concept of like
Mhm.
I'm a barbarian, like a drunken rager type of build where like I'm going to just run in and punch stuff. And so you're like, I want to go monk because the like unarmed fighting style isn't great, and the if you do like tavern brawler, it's still like
Mm-hmm.
not better than using an axe. And so
Right.
you go with that like that build. But barbarian and monk have a lot of very similar mechanics of like unarmored
Oh yeah.
defense,
Mhm.
unarmored movement. Like both of those are technically things that do not stack with each other, which is then like two things that you're missing out on
Right.
with a with multi-classing those two together. um I've I've done it a variety of different ways to try and make it like work for players, but then you run into the like trying to make that balance work. For you want to help make it work, but you also don't want to overpower them. But you don't
Yeah.
want them to be missing out on like stuff they're spending levels to get.
I,
Yeah.
I
Well,
think I think giving them like the have you ever just turned off minimum requirements for things?
Oh yeah.
Where it's just like
Yeah.
technically you can't,
yeah.
but you know what? If you really want to like 3 max 3 dump stat like something and just go into being a monk with no wisdom, I
Hmm.
mean, type of thing where it's like, okay, give it a shot. Because would you would unarmored defense like you can pick the better one, or is like you get the first one?
So I would usually say you get whichever one's better. It's
Yeah.
whichever one's higher. But like that still is frustrating to like to lose out on those things. Of like if I'm a barbarian monk, I need a high strength, dex, con, and wisdom. Um,
Well, here's what I was gonna say. Why wisdom?
Monk stuff comes from wisdom. I mean, you could say that
Well,
you're
that's your AC and key points, but
right.
you always get a minimum of like one or two. Like is it your proficiency, right? And level?
Uh, no, key points are like a list on the chart. Like they're
Yeah, you
just a
have a set number.
mechanical.
Oh, so
And
it's not even
it's
like
one per level, and I think like once or twice you get two.
okay. I thought it was like
So
plus your wisdom, like that's how you got. So then,
yeah.
like I don't
Now,
know. That's for like spell DC, but like
yeah.
if you pick the ones like whenever I get like a shitty like saving like a shitty like attack modifier or saving throw on a spellcaster, I just go for like, all right, these are buffs or these are like blanket. I don't need to roll or like I can roll at least. They don't have to save type things. If you were to
Mhm.
just choose the 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 monk things that don't care about your wisdom in
Hmm.
theory,
Yeah.
that's but you'd have to go, the person would have to know it's like, okay, they're not wise, they basically went to a monastery and like brute forced their way through the thing
Sure.
Well, I mean
and didn't.
that's Goku. Like if you
Yeah.
take
Yeah.
the what is it, the light monk? that does the like light blasts and stuff
Mhm.
Hmm.
Oh,
with a
there is just
barbarian.
a
And
Dragon Ball essentially type of
yeah,
thing.
like
Yeah, yeah.
it's that's kind of like one of the ones that I've seen people say this makes the most sense because that monk doesn't have a lot of save DC
Hmm.
options. Um, they shoot key blasts, which is what they do in Dragon Ball,
Hmm.
and you can do a strength build for your monk that
Sure.
way.
I love a
But
strength build.
that that honestly is what I like to do with those broken multi-classes. Like,
Hmm.
okay, yes, this multi-class doesn't make sense, but how could you finagle it to get it to make
Mhm.
Hmm.
sense? And that's the most fun. Like the barbarian, if you do swords bard,
Barbarian's so good.
um, like then the swords bard features you like that's not casting a spell. You're just
Hmm.
burning your inspiration.
Mhm.
And so you can do all your barbarian, rages and reckless attacks and stuff, and then add on all of those flourishes with it.
Hmm.
And it if you if you do something like get off a spell first first round, especially that's not concentration, then rage. And so like whatever spell effects or you damaged a whole bunch of people with something big and then you went into rage and start attacking them, that's a lot of fun.
Hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of ways to do it.
Mm,
The I'm also, and I don't know how you guys feel about this, but I am usually in the boat of if a player comes to me and they're like, I want to build this character, but there's this thing that doesn't work with like having those classes together. I'm usually open to figuring something else out, like to give you some alternate feature instead of it, or give you some like combination of features, or give you a like something that gives you a way to still get features without having to sacrifice those. Because I know that is, for me with multi-classing, the thing that I get the most stuck on is like, I want to do this. I have this idea for a character. I want to play this thing. But there's like, I don't want to miss out on essentially a whole like level bonus in order to get there.
right, right. Yeah, and
Especially since a lot of those things are at like you get this at level 2 or 3 or 4 or stuff like that. So if you're trying to do a higher combination of levels, like missing out on a an important thing at a certain level is a big deal.
yeah. Yeah, and I think that's why multi-classing with monk is so hard
Hmm.
because so many other classes get their big features within the first one or two levels,
Hmm.
and monk is so spread out over
Yeah.
the first
Yeah.
5 levels that if you don't take 5 levels of monk, you're really not getting most of the features, and you still like everything's so heavily tied to key points
Hmm.
that you have
Mm.
this tiny little pool of key points,
Yep.
and you're not going to get more until you take another level of monk,
Hmm.
and even then you're just going to get one.
Well, and then depending on what your like what you multi-class with monk, you're getting like let me multi-class with rogue. Okay, you're going to miss out on a couple of things. Let me multi-class with barbarian.
Hmm.
You're going to miss out on a couple of things. Let me multi-class with a fighter or a paladin. Like there's like proficiencies and stuff that you're not going to use from those, or you're going to miss out on like your unarmored defense and unarmored movement and stuff for monk. Like
Yeah,
it's one of those classes where it it has the potential to be so cool multi-classed with other things,
yeah,
but if you like rules as written, you're gonna miss out on stuff that like you don't necessarily want to miss out on.
yeah, yeah. It's such a cool idea to punch and kick things. Like, it's just sounds like so much
Mhm.
fun. Like, yes, I punch the dragon to death.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I want to do it with magic. Or, I want to do it with strength and not I punch it so fast that it dies.
Yeah.
Um, and it's just mechanically so hard to do that. I will say the new version, what they've put out for monks, is a little better,
Yeah.
but not a ton. There's a lot more ways. They didn't really give more key points,
Mm.
but fewer things are tied to key points, barely. But you have more ways to get key points back.
Okay.
Which is nice. So that even though
Yeah.
you have a little pool of key points, you can get them back like a few times per short rest.
Yeah.
Um,
Because with key points, it's always like, okay, well, let me do this thing. In order to do that thing, I have to spend this resource that I have like
yes.
3 of, which is like,
Yeah.
I've heard people compare it to like a wizard only has a set number of spell slots, and so like why should a monk be able to like regenerate their key points? And it's like, yeah, a wizard only has a set number of spell points, but those spell slots can be used for like wish. Like at
Yeah.
at the best, I can punch this guy a lot. Like there's
Mhm.
it's a
I wish for
very
violence.
I wish I could punch this guy a bunch of times. Like I love key points, but they are like a difficult one to manage well.
Yeah.
Especially and some of the core stuff in 5e, like the is it shadow the way of shadow
Yes.
monk, where it's like
Like
you can
everything.
you can cast these 3 spells. In order to do it, it costs 2 key points, and it's like, why? Like, just give me
Thanks.
1 casting of it per day is better than like having to spend
Yeah.
2 key points on it. 2 key points is
Well,
excessive.
and it's why the classic Four Elements monk is like, oh, this is the worst subclass in the game because you're so at the level that you can cast certain spells, it costs you far higher resources than it does even a half caster to cast that spell.
Yeah.
Like I forget the specifics, but it's just like when you compare like apples to apples
Mm-hmm.
spell casting, it's bad. You're like a
Yeah.
1/8 caster.
Well, and one
Um,
of them is like the like flame punch, right? Where it's like the
yeah,
essentially is like the firebolt, which is a
yeah,
cantrip, and it doesn't get particularly good at any point, and you're spending one of your very limited resources on it. Like, even if you want
yeah,
to compare it
Yeah.
to like spell slots, a wizard doesn't have to cast a spell slot for a cantrip. Like,
nope,
why am I spending this to do this very basic thing?
yeah, exactly. But
Uh
anyway,
yeah, it
we've ranted
we
about monks.
we could go into a whole tangent about monks. Also, while we're on the topic of monks, if you are playing a Sun Soul monk, just a reminder that you can use ranged attacks and they do radiant damage. That's not directed at anyone specifically. That is a general reminder to everyone, even if you're not related to Elliot.
Yeah, yeah. It's fun reminding him of that every month.
Every session.
Yeah. Well, okay, I will say the way the book explains it is like,
It
hey,
does a bad
let's
job.
re-explain all of the things that your punches can do, but in a way that doesn't sound at all like the things your punches can do.
Yeah, yeah.
Like a separate feature.
It's
Yeah.
weird.
Yeah.
Elliot, I know you have to run. So
Oh crap.
I wanna wrap up.
Yeah, it sneaks up on you. The time just goes right up
It
there.
flies. Thank you so much for being here. Any last like little bits or anything like that you want to drop about narrative multiclassing or anything like that?
Just follow your heart.
There we go.
Just
That's it.
like what's in here,
Yeah.
let it out.
What's
Let
gonna
the
be
demon
fun for
out.
you? Yeah.
Let it possess the world and bring it to ultimate ruin.
Mm.
I'm sorry, this is the
Mm.
wrong live stream.
Let it possess the world.
Yeah, I mean that's terrible feedback, but we'll there's so much that you can do with like all of your characters. There's so many different builds that you can make, so many like directions you can take a character.
Don't be afraid of weird character builds.
Yeah.
Like there are a few that are like, ooh, this character's just not going to be fun to play, but most of them you can find, as long as you look through the character, like the stats and everything,
Mm-hmm.
there are ways to build almost every combination in some kind of fun way.
Mm-hmm.
So don't like I always get in the mindset of like, no, I got to optimize, I got to make the best character possible, and then I'm like, oh, that's boring though.
And
Yeah.
don't shy away from something because somebody else from the party is doing it. If you can do it differently enough
Yeah.
where it's not, you're
Yes.
not like, oh great, now we both do this. Because I know it's like,
Yeah.
I always say it's always boring. It's like, I go in, I sneak attack, I go in, I sneak attack. It's one thing if it's like that, but if you can like flavor it a different way. I know I've done a game where it was like there was 2 rangers and we were both what do you call it, the swarm ranger.
Mm-hmm.
I was like like a woodsman that were brought back by fireflies. The other guy was a beekeeper, and we were very different.
Yeah.
So like you can flavor an aspect of a class
Mhm.
very differently, and it doesn't have to be like the same old type of thing. So
Yeah.
don't take things off the table.
I have, in one of my parties, I have 2 paladins who both have sentinel and both use pole arms, and like on paper they are essentially the same character, but like if you like look at them play them, they're vastly different.
That's interesting.
And
That's
they
also a scary combo to
it's
have
terrifying.
Oh,
two
yeah.
of.
Yeah, it's terrifying. They stand on opposite ends of the party. Everyone in the party has insane like bonuses to saving throws and stuff like that. And they're just
Golly.
a
That's my favorite. I love getting a high level pan because of the auras.
Yeah.
Like that's
Yeah.
my favorite
Well,
part.
and then if
Ooh.
you get somebody with telekinesis and you just ping pong
Uh-huh.
an enemy between them.
Yep.
Ooh.
You have polearm master and sentinel. Yeah,
Mhm.
it gets wicked. Thank you all so much for being here. Our calls to action this weekend are don't be afraid to multi-class things, even if they don't necessarily make sense. If you want to make a weird little guy, make a weird little guy. There's 1,000 different ways that you can combine things, and all of them are fun in different ways. The second one is, if you have a idea for something that doesn't necessarily like work, or it conflicts in some way or something like that, talk to your GM. The worst they can say is no. Like, there's nothing that I can do to like make that like not suck for you. Like, that's just something you're gonna have to live with. But the like, a lot of GMs are happy to work with you on making your character do cool things. Third one, let's see. If you are going to be making a character, make them in a way that is suboptimal. Give them a some trait or feature or subclass or something like that that doesn't work well with the rest of their stuff, but is like narratively fun. There's a lot of creative ways that things can be merged together, and you can absolutely reflavor things to fit. Like, Elliot's biomancer character is a druid and an artificer, which those shouldn't go well together, but it works really well for the build.
It has a negative strength